Hello everyone! So recently I've been playing Etheria Restart, the new gacha game that just got released recently. So what is this game all about? Etheria Restart is a turn-based RPG game, set in a futuristic world where people upload their consciousness into a digital realm. You will take on the role as a hyperlinker, leading a team of unique characters called Animus, each offering different abilities, skills, and roles. The game features a unique world exploration system based on story progression, with PvE content like story missions, boss stages, and resource farming along the way. And there's also a real-time player versus player mode, which I found surprisingly interesting, since it gives you the chance to test your team composition and strategies against other players in live battles. In this video, I will be sharing my overall experience with the game, the combat, the gacha system, and how free-to-play friendly it really is. Full disclosure, this video is sponsored by Etheria Restart, but I'm free to share my honest thoughts. Everything you hear in this video is entirely my own opinion. If you're interested in trying the game, you can check the description below for the download link. And with that being said, let's dive in. At the start of the game, you'll get to choose your main character, who you have full control of during exploration and in the home base. There's also a companion that you can equip with skins, along with the main character, which lets you customize things to your liking. Before we get into combat and exploration, I have to say, the home menu UI is really well done. It fits the futuristic theme without feeling too cluttered or confusing. It didn't take me long at all to get used to the layout and navigation. As for progression, everything from the story to resource farming is PvE based. World exploration is tied to the story, and as you move through each area, you can roam around to find treasure chests, which are actually pretty useful. They contain upgrade materials, and sometimes even gacha currency. And another thing I really liked is the inclusion of sneak attack mechanics. You can use the environment to your advantage, hiding behind objects or approaching from the right angle to land a strike, which can instantly kill weaker enemies. However, stronger ones will still pull you into combat, but you'll still get the advantage to act first. At the start of combat, you can assign 4 to 5 Animus to your team. Both your Animus and the enemies have elemental attributes, and each element has strengths and weaknesses, kind of like a rock-paper-scissors system. Choosing the right Animus based on elemental matchups really makes a difference depending on the enemies you're facing. That's why it's recommended to build a balanced lineup with Animus from each element, so you're ready for any situation. As for the combat UI, it's pretty clean. At the bottom, you'll see the turn bar, which shows the action order. On the right side, you'll find each Animus's skills. The first is a basic attack, while the second and third are their main skills, with the third being the ultimate, followed by a flashy animation. On the left side, you'll see the HP bars and active status effects for your team, including buffs and debuffs. There's also a helpful little companion, which you can equip to each Animus. It adds extra effects or utility during battle. Combat starts off simple, but the deeper you get, the more mechanics you'll start to notice. Some Animus work better when paired together, and team synergy really matters. I actually found myself stuck a few times during the story, most likely because of bad team composition or under-leveled units. Something that was easily fixed with better planning and strategy, which made the experience feel more challenging and rewarding. That is why understanding both your units and the enemies you're up against goes a long way, especially in PvP where countering plays a big role. The game also gives you a strong start with a free SSR and several SR Animus, which is actually pretty important for a beginner. Now the big question is, how far can you go without relying too much on the gacha? Personally, I didn't pull after the tutorial summon, mostly because I wanted to see how far I could go without leaning on gacha too much. And honestly, I still made solid progress. I nearly finished the story and had no real issues farming resources along the way, and considering my team comp was far from perfect, I could have gone even further with a more optimized setup. And beyond the main story, you'll find daily challenges for farming resources, trial challenges that include Anisync Echoes, where you take on tough battles against other Animus for valuable rewards, plus Phantom Theater, a raid mode where you team up with other players to collect some rewards. There's also a variety of limited time events to keep things fresh and engaging. All of that ties back to strengthening your team, which brings us to the next part, character progression. In Etheria Restart, character progression revolves around 3 main components, the Animus themselves, modules, and shells. Your Animus can be leveled up using EXP items, and you can increase their star level to raise their max level cap. Alongside that, you can enhance their skills and stats using specific resources you earn through farming. There's also a dupe system. Getting duplicate Animus allows you to unlock additional improvements, adding even more potential to their kit. Overall, upgrading the Animus themselves is fairly straightforward. Next is the module system. Modules can be equipped to your Animus and work like gear or relics, providing stat boosts and extra effects that can also be leveled up. Then there's the shell system. companions that you can assign to each animus to support them in battle. Shells come with different skills, like healing, offensive, or various support effects. Similar to animus, you can also level them up and increase their star level. Another layer to team building is that both modules and shells provide set bonuses and passive effects. When equipped in certain combinations, they trigger what's known as matrix effects, which can boost stats or add extra passive abilities. This lets you customize your animus to your liking, adding more variety and flexibility to your builds. It's worth noting that you only need to gacha for animus. Modules, shells, and other upgrade materials can all be farmed. Like most gacha games, the deeper you go, the tougher the content becomes. And since character builds rely heavily on modules and shells, pushing into farming stages becomes just as important as clearing the story. I also really like that the game lets you auto-run farming stages in the background, so you can focus on other things, like progressing through the main story, jumping into PvP, or exploring other content. Even better, the auto-farming still continues even after you close the game. Let's move on to the gacha system. Like I mentioned earlier, there's no weapon banner in Etheria Restart, so you only pulling for the characters. First, let's talk about the featured or limited banner. It offers a 1% drop rate for SSR Animus, with a hard pity at 80 pulls. What's great is that Etheria Restart features a 100% rate up guarantee, so if you hit pity, you're always getting the featured unit. No 50-50, no off banner, and honestly, that's actually a huge plus. There's also a permanent banner that also include the featured one alongside with other SCR unit with lower drop rate at 0.75% and even lower for Apex Animus, still with a hard pity at 80 pulls. Now remember that there's an element mechanic that I mentioned earlier. There are also two elements that only weak or strong to each other, and that's a light and dark animus. Since light and dark animus are generally considered stronger due to their unique elemental advantage, they actually have their own banner, separate from the regular ones, and they use different gacha currency. For the featured and permanent banners, you'll use anima prototypes, but for light and dark banners, you'll need Apex prototypes instead. You can also use crystals to pull. It costs 100 crystals per pull on the regular banners, but 300 crystals per pull on the light and dark banners, so yeah, it's 3 times more expensive. Light and dark units are clearly have more elemental advantage, and naturally they're harder to get. But on the bright side, the rate up animus is much easier to get. Since the banner only includes the featured unit, there's no risk of pulling off banner. You'll also get a one-time targeted banner, where you can choose a specific SSR animus, with a hard pity at just 40 pulls. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I barely pulled after a certain point in the story, so I can safely say you get a decent chunk of gacha currency just by playing. As a free-to-play player early on, you can easily save up for 100+ pulls, which is enough to get at least 2 SSRs. And currently Etheria Restart have Fukyu as the newest rate up. Fukyu is a strong, support-focused animus who brings survivability, speed buffs, and turn meter control to your team. Her first skill deals damage to an enemy while also boosts 2 random allies' turn meter. Just with that alone, she helps your team rotate faster. Then her second skill, she can delivers 3 hit to 1 enemy, and with each hit, triggers Moonlit Veil to ally with the lowest HP. Moonlit Veil is an effect that can heal and boost turn meter after they end the turn or get hit, though it only triggers once per turn. And finally, her ultimate skill adds even more survivability, giving the whole team a shield, speed buff, and applying Moonlit Veil to herself for 2 turns. Moonlit Veil works a bit differently on Fukyu. She still heals like everyone else, but doesn't gain turn meter from it. Instead, her passive increases her turn meter when she doesn't have the effect, and reduces it when she does, creating a natural loop that helps her cycle back to her ultimate more quickly. And honestly, controlling the turn order is one of the strongest advantages you can have in this game, and I think kinda game-breaking. With Fukyu's banner still ongoing, this is a great opportunity to pick her up, and you can also check out her official showcase, that I will link down below. Now let's talk about one of the core features of Etheria Restart, the PvP mode. Currently, there are 3 types of PvP mode available, each offering a different kind of experience. First, we have Etheria, which is similar to what you see in many other gacha games. You set up your Animus team to defend your base, and then challenge other players' setups. It's an offline format, meaning the battles aren't live. You're essentially facing AI-controlled versions of other players' teams. It's the most casual and low-pressure PvP mode in the game. It's great for testing team compositions while still earning rewards along the way. Next, we have the Summit Arena, one of the most competitive mode in the game, also known as RTA, or Real-Time Arena. Just like the name suggests, this is where you go up against other players in real time. This mode is actually pretty fun, and I was curious how they'd handle the overall balance. But it starts off strong. Before the match begins, both you and your opponent take turns drafting your team. You pick one, then your opponent picks, and it goes back and forth until both rosters are full. This drafting phase is where the mind games begin. You can start figuring out what your opponent is aiming for by watching their picks and try to predict their strategy. And honestly, it's a process that definitely takes time and experience to get better at. There are no duplicate picks in this mode, so if your opponent drafts an animus you wanted to use, you won't be able to bring them. Finally, after both teams are set, you and your opponent each get to ban one animus from the opposing lineup and the fight begin, without time limit, until all of one side's animus are defeated, or until someone decides to surrender. What makes PvP especially interesting is that you're going up against other players that using the same pool of animus. Either it's the one you have built, or planning to build. And keep it in mind that every animus has a counter, and even those counters have their own counters. That's why understanding the entire roster, even the ones you haven't personally raised, becomes incredibly valuable. Fearless Arena plays out similarly to Summit Arena, but you're matched against a pool of 8 opponents on a qualification-style format. Each victory also earns you arena currency, which you can use in the arena shop to grab useful items. The game also strongly encourages participation in the PvP mode since they are offering seasonal rewards. Even if you're just a casual player who's not aiming for the top ranks, you can still earn some solid rewards. And I think instead of competition of whaling, it's more like competition on how you set up your modules and shells, and how deep your knowledge goes in countering other animus. To sum it all up, Etheria Restart is a well-rounded gacha turn-based RPG that really nails the balance between accessibility and depth. It's easy to get into, but it offers surprising depth the more you play it. From strategic team building and character progression, to a PvE and PvP content that rewards strategy and planning over brute force. There's also a wide range of game modes to explore, whether it's progressing through the story, farming for resources, jumping into co-op raids, enjoying fun side content like minigames, or even creating your own guild to take on guild raids and challenge other guilds in battle. And of course, there's a competitive PvP mode. In fact, the developers have already started off an official esports tournament, the Etheria World Summit, showing just how much potential and hype the PvP mode really has. The gacha system itself is also pretty generous. With a clear pity system and 100% rate up on banners, getting the featured unit actually easier without having to worry about the rate off nightmares. Whether you're a hardcore player or someone just looking to play at your own pace, there's room to enjoy the game in your own way. So yeah, I think Etheria Restart is definitely worth checking out. And if you're interested, be sure to use the download link in the description below. Once again, thank you for Etheria Restart for sponsoring this video. As always, thanks for watching and see you guys on the next video.